Today we'll be continuing my tier list ranking series here on the channel, and as you can tell from the title, we're going to be talking about tight ends in this one. Now in tier 1, it's the biggest no-brainer in fantasy football, and that's Travis Kelce being ranked as tight end 1. Last season he scored 50% more than the second-ranked tight end on a points per game basis. Kelce is dominating the rest of the field, and that's a huge reason why he is consistently going in the first half of round 1 in most fantasy drafts. Moving on to tier 3, yeah, you heard that right. Kelce is head and shoulders above the competition, so much so that it only seems right to leave that gap in my tier list rankings. Now, Mark Andrews takes the number 2 spot on this list. Andrews is responsible for the only tight end 1 finish not named Travis Kelce since 2015, and he accomplished that feat back in 2021. But when given the opportunity to repeat last season, he finished, 125 points behind Kelce, despite playing just 2 fewer games. At number 3, it's CJ Hawkinson. Last season, he finished with a per-game average of roughly 12.7 fantasy points, but when he adjusts his stats following the move to Minnesota, his per-game average increases to right around 14.1. At that rate, he still finishes as a distant second to Kelce last season, but you get my point. Hawkinson has the opportunity to build on what he accomplished in 9 games with the Vikings last season, making him a strong consideration for a top 3 option at the position. The last member of this group is George Kittle. Kittle had his best season in 2022 in regards to receiving touchdowns with 11, nearly doubling his previous season high of 6. Given the level of target competition on the 49ers offense, I tend to believe that Kittle is going to regress in this category, closer to his career average of about 5 receiving touchdowns. That being said, when Kittle is healthy, he's a top 3 to 4 option at tight end. We're a third of the way through this list, and I want to take the time to remind you that if you made it this far in the video, please consider subscribing to the channel for more fantasy football content like this. I'm going to be pumping out videos throughout the season you won't want to miss, and they might just help you win your leagues. Now back to the list. This next tier is comprised of extremely talented players who have the skill set to finish inside the top 5 at the position, if and only if they manage to stay healthy. First up, it's the unicorn Kyle Pitts. With the best rookie tight end season since Mike Ditka back in 1961, Pitts put together a campaign that had both redraft and dynasty fantasy football managers salivating heading into 2022. Unfortunately for Pitts and those who invested in him as a talent, his second season was extremely disappointing. Averaging an abysmal 7.5 fantasy points per game before tearing his MCL in Week 11, left fantasy managers with a foul taste in their mouth. He's now back on the field participating in preseason games and should be ready to go come Week 1. At just 22 years old entering his 3rd season, Pitts has tremendous upside at the position, assuming he can stay healthy. Darren Waller is next in this tier for me. At 30 years old, his previous 8 seasons as a pro can be reasonably defined as boom or bust. With just 2 healthy seasons between 2019 and 2020, Waller put his abilities on full display, finishing the year as tight end 3 and 2 respectively. Now moving on to his 4th NFL team, in a receiving room with virtually no competition for target share, Waller has the opportunity to shine once again so long as his body holds up this season. Dallas Goedert falls to tier 5 for me. Similar to the previous 2 players, Goedert has struggled to stay on the field with various injuries. However, with a career best finish of tight end 10 back in 2019, what makes Goedert most different from the 2 aforementioned is that league-winning upside at the position. With Jalen Hurts still developing as a passer, Goedert's injury history, and some of the stiffest target competition from A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, I find it realistic to project Goedert finishing as tight end 6 at best. Up next is Pat Freiermuth. It seems like Deontay Johnson wasn't the only Steeler to experience touchdown regression last season, as Muth only managed to find the end zone twice in 2022, compared to 7 times as a rookie the year prior. With that being said, Muth still managed to finish as tight end 8, and I expect for him to remain a consistent option for fantasy managers as his quarterback Kenny Pickett continues to develop as a passer. The 24-year-old has a career average of roughly 9.3 fantasy points per game across 2 healthy seasons. With Muth as your fantasy tight end, ceiling is your biggest concern, as he has just 1 single game finish greater than 16 fantasy points. At number 9, I've got Evan Engram, another player who flashed as a rookie but struggled to stay healthy for multiple seasons. Engram signed a 3-year extension to stay with the Jaguars this past offseason, but despite this fact, I'm concerned about his ability to return value in fantasy for a few reasons. My primary concern is how Engram reached his point total last season. Roughly 48% of his total fantasy points came over the span of just 4 weeks in 2022. Not only that, but with the addition of Calvin Ridley, it wouldn't surprise me to see Engram's target share take a significant hit this season. While I'm not opposed to drafting Engram in best ball formats, I'm much more hesitant about drafting him in traditional fantasy leagues. David Njoku cracks my top 10 in this list. Following the return of Deshaun Watson after his suspension last season, Njoku found the end zone at a much improved rate compared to his first 9 games with Jacoby Brissett under center. Granted, this is a small sample size to draw conclusions from. However, I believe those final 5 games that Njoku played with Watson as his quarterback show signs of potential for 2023. Through 6 seasons as a pro, Njoku has 2 career finishes as tight end 10 or better back in 2018 and last season. And with Watson as his quarterback, the potential has never been higher for the 27-year-old tight end. At number 11, I've got Tyler Higbee. Last season, he finished as tight end 6 because of 2 vitally important factors. Firstly, health. Last season was his first fully healthy campaign since 2018. And secondly, receiving volume. Higbee set career highs in targets and receptions in 2022. Among tight ends, he ranked 4th in targets, trailing only the top 3 on this list, and 5th in receptions, the top 3 plus Evan Engram. Very little has changed in the Rams' offense to suggest Higbee can't repeat this level of production, especially when considering his quarterback Matthew Stafford is expected to be in much better health. Higbee could realistically finish much higher than I have him ranked here. For the last player on this list, I'm going with Dalton Schultz. He's the second player on this list to have changed teams this past offseason, moving from Dallas and Dak Prescott to Houston and the number 2 overall draft pick, CJ Stroud. While I don't expect Stroud's rookie performance to tank Schultz's fantasy value, I do find his current ADP to be a bit high given his realistic range of outcomes. Never finishing worse than tight end 12 over the past 3 seasons, including a top 3 finish in 2021, Schultz has proven he can compete among the best at the position in this league. I simply believe there will be a learning curve with Stroud leading this offense, which will likely limit Schultz's fantasy upside in 2023. Well, that's going to conclude my top 12 tight end tier list rankings. I hope you enjoyed the video, learned a few things, and remember to subscribe for more fantasy football content like this. Until next time, bye-bye.